can't remember a single time that I was prevented from doing what I wanted because I was a female, either on the rock or in the mountains. Amy Winehouse. The sport of rock climbing began with mountaineering. In 1786, a group of men made the first ascent hiking up Mont Blanc in Western Europe. Traditional roles of women in history provide perspective as to why rock climbing has always been a male-dominated sport. Women were socialized not to take risks. They were expected to have babies, cook, clean, sew, care for their husband, and wear constricting dresses while doing it. Women were never expected to be independent or go on adventures that could put them in danger. In fact, the Victorian ideal was that the physical activity for women was viewed negatively, but ultimately was perceived as having a harmful effect on the all-important role of motherhood, as stated by Carla Henderson in both Gains and Gaps. It wasn't until 1799, 13 years after the ascent up Mont Blanc, that a woman is recorded climbing. Gradually thereafter, few women were documented as mountaineers. In 1808, an 18-year-old woman hiked up Mont Blanc. In 1880, an American woman named Meta Brevoort ditched her dress and traded it in for a more suitable pair of trousers. The Ladies' Alpine Club was formed in 1907, but it wasn't until 1920 when an all-female mountaineering team was formed. 32 years later, two women made the first women-only ascent rock climbing of Devil's Tower. Lynn Hill makes her mark for women climbers in 1979 and kept raising the bar. She was the first person, not woman, but person to free climb the nose of El Cap. Then in 1994, she free climbed it in one day. That had never been done by anyone before. More currently, Lisa Rands and Angie Payne have scaled the most difficult boulder problems ever climbed by women. "19-year-old Sasha DeJulian is the top world-ranking female outdoor climber. She's also the reigning U.S. Female rock climbers have increasingly grown in numbers since the 1980s. They are leading routes, making all-female ascents of mountains, and proving that they have what it takes. There is debate in the climbing community about whether or not women are setting enough new climbing routes or only focusing on climbing the present routes. Also, whether or not women will be able to climb boulder problems at the men's highest achieved level of difficulty. Bouldering does require a greater deal of strength and strain on the upper body than traditional climbing does, and is very challenging for the majority of women. My theory is that the increase of female climbers in more recent history is due to the new appreciation of the female who is independent and athletic. Rock climbing and mountaineering was predominantly a male sport and still is, but the female participants are growing. It wasn't until 1974 that women were allowed in British alpine clubs. That's only 38 years ago. The 19th century women worked outside of the home, fought for equality, and in turn had more freedoms to experience outdoor leisure. It's hard enough worrying about staying on a rock, let alone trying to do it in a skirt with your breasts pushed up. There was and is an issue of the female apologetic. Heterosexual and homosexual female climbers would dress in an overtly feminine way and attribute their skill to luck in order to avoid being labeled as deviant. So I decided to give rock climbing a shot. This sport is hazardous as well as mentally and physically demanding. Oh, and if you want to be an avid climber, you'd better be an adrenaline junkie and be able to really push your limits. I went to the climbing gym with my brother and his girlfriend Bridget. As anticipated, Bridget and I were the only two girls there. I did feel out of place, but I gained more confidence as I practiced boulder problems. Wes and Bridget encouraged me to be confident and just have fun. I couldn't imagine trying to do this in a corset and a puffy dress. I'm so grateful that I have equal rights to try rock climbing as I please. I was not judged for getting sweaty and scraping at my hands either. We went to San Luis Obispo to visit family and take my first stab at outdoor climbing. I was so nervous until I started at my first route. It was a 5'4", and I felt as though I had underestimated myself when I started climbing. I charged up that thing. I conquered my fear of heights pretty quickly. Then I climbed a 5'6" named Kermit's Crack. It was a longer climb and definitely more challenging than the 5'4". I pushed myself up to keep going and reach the top. I did get frustrated and a bit scared at times when I felt stuck, but when I would figure out what my next move should be, I was proud of myself. Surprisingly, it was a great stress reliever. I was so concentrated on the climb that my everyday stresses of homework, school, work, and bills never crossed my mind. Women, myself included, gain confidence by rock climbing. We are strong, athletic, competitive, and do not have to conform to traditional roles and notions of being feminine. Rock climbing is not a totally mainstream sport yet, so I think that it puts less pressure on women to emphasize their sexuality. So, why hadn't I tried this yet? I had intrapersonal, and structural constraints holding me back. Whether you are a man or a woman, rock climbing is worth trying at least once. I think you'll surprise yourself at what you were able to accomplish just as I did. I can see how men would be more inclined to try this sport because it does take a lot of upper body strength that men are more biologically apt to have than a woman. I learned that women today are excelling at traditional climbing, but not as many women are excelling at bouldering. So why haven't women made more contributions to bouldering? My theory, biologically, men have much more natural upper body strength to pull themselves up a rock, whereas traditional climbing utilizes leg strength more. Physiologically, men have greater absolute strength compared to women, but women can acquire a high strength-to-weight relation through training. Men are generally taller than women, and hence they have a longer reach that can be really advantageous to a climber. But women are inclined to have a natural sense of balance and flexible muscles. These abilities substitute for a lack of total strength and encourage development of exceptional climbing techniques. So, ladies and gentlemen, learn and grow with each other. In the words of the world-famous female climber Lynn Hill, man or woman, you have to have the mental characteristics, the ability to concentrate, the focus, and flexibility. It does depend on the raw power. I would definitely try rock climbing again. Just when I thought I should give up, I would make another move that put me closer and closer to the top of the climb. When I finally made it, I felt a natural high that I've never felt before. It was an incredible experience. I've gained so much respect for both men and women climbers.